Hey everyone, this is Ricky Rios. I'm going to give my presentation on inclusive leadership for AEP 855. Some of the goals I hope to accomplish throughout this presentation, to develop a better understanding of what models and challenges of inclusive leadership look like in other organizations, how to determine how these models and ideals may be applied to the administration field of education, and then lastly, what are some of the steps to having inclusive leadership within the school. So I looked at two different leadership models in two different organizations. One was called Project Unify with the Special Olympics. It's a school program based off the beliefs and foundations of the Special Olympics. It's for disabled and non-disabled youth. The primary targets for leaders are youth who possess or have the ability to possess specific leadership qualities. And then their biggest overall goal is to have a reduction in dropout rates with the inclusive model, getting more kids involved, keeping them involved, and then hopefully that leads to dropout reduction. So second one was called Deloitte. They're the second largest professionals network by revenue. They have over 225,000 employees. Their inclusive model looks to reduce bias of both conscious and unconscious nature. To do this, they point out what things people are biased towards and look for several different categories of information to reduce bias. The main ways that they've determined that people might have bias is by having with people like themselves. They tend to gravitate towards people of the same age, sex, cultural views, whatever it might be, and in turn that ultimately excludes the other groups of people. So some more about Project Unify. It uses a Kouzes and Posner leadership model to identify the characteristics the youth leaders must possess. It also has adult allies. The adult allies help foster the growth of the youth leaders within the school. I'm not going to talk so much about those during this presentation, but they are an integral part, and ultimately I think that in any school they're going to be just as important as the leaders themselves. So about the Kouzes and Posner model, they have 5 different parts to them: model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. I'm going to cover each of those very briefly and what that might mean within the Project Unify model. They have 4 different components that fall under each of those different sections that I just talked about they help kids to be considered an inclusive leader. And again, within the actual framework of the Project Unify, they have all the criteria for the adult allies as well, and what they must do to be part of the group, is not part of the group, but part of the leadership model as well. So some of the different characteristics that they look for in people to model the way: identify the personal values that will guide their leadership, understand who they are as a leader, and identify how to use those leadership skills, and then model the attitudes and skills and efforts required for effective leadership. Basically, be that leader, be the person that other people are looking up to, who they rely on as a leader, and just, have that positive attitude all the time. Inspire a shared vision. Youth leaders demonstrate the belief that youth can make a difference in their schools, communities, and the broader society, leading to a better future. They demonstrate the belief in justice, equity, and individual differences. And then lastly, they develop the skills to effectively communicate across ages and ability levels. So they're looking at it as a holistic vision themselves. They don't just look at the right now. They look for the future. What can we do to make everything better for everybody? Challenge the process. They embrace the change as a natural part of growth. They have skills to advocate for both themselves and for other people within their collaborative group. And they support and guide others through adversity. They don't just go with the status quo all the time. They're always looking to improve, always make things better in any way that they can, and stand up for themselves the right way, or stand up for others in the right way. Enable others to act. They build and sustain strong, meaningful relationships, value the leadership skills and development of others regardless of ability level, and then recognize how and when to be a follower. Lastly, they identify and demonstrate the value and impact of working on a team. So again, these leaders are going to understand that it's not just about them. They're looking to build others up and let them go along with them, and hopefully those people that they're building up in time will become a leader themselves. And then lastly, encourage the heart. Youth leaders identify both short and long-term victories in their individual and collective work. And they have the skills to reflect and celebrate the individually and collaborative goals that they've had. Some more about the Deloitte company. They had a quote that I found intriguing: "No leader is an island working in a team." So, you can't be a leader just working by yourself, and especially a leader who is trying to be inclusive of everybody. You can't segregate yourself and put yourself in a box on your own. You need to be a part of the team, going to them for ideas, letting them come to you for ideas. So some of their goals was to understand the different challenges that reduce an inclusive leadership model. And because they don't have the inclusive leadership model, it reduces the voice of others. And then they developed a number of challenges and then offered the strategies as examples, how exclusive leadership models in nature will almost always mute others. So some of those challenges that they came up with was first speaker advantage. This person's usually the first one on the floor, and because that person leads the conversation, they're usually the first one to offer the ideas. It doesn't give people an unbiased view on the situation. And so they said some ideas might be to give people prior knowledge of the meeting, let them know what is going to happen, what the topic might be, and let them develop a paragraph what they might say in that situation to help create a more diverse view of the situation. The loudest voice roars, pretty self-explanatory. That means the person who is talking the loudest, yelling the most, they're going to be the one that most people listen to. And then bias to groupthink, and this is kind of goes back to what I said before. Maybe the first person who will talk, that's the person that everybody goes with. That doesn't mean they always have the best idea. They called it the devil's advocate, the one person who has to go against what everybody else is saying. I like to call it the 10th man. If you have 9 people who have the same idea and they're going along with the person who had the first idea, that you have to designate that person who is the 10th man. And the 10th man, their job is to come up with an idea contrary to what everybody else said and to get people thinking about what other changes could be made. So they had their big wheel of integrity. On the outside, they have 2 main parts, and then they have 4 other criteria underneath that, which then breaks into a lot of other criteria. And then in the very middle, you have culture. I'm going to cover the 2 main parts were talent and enterprise, and then the 4 sections under that's what I'm going to cover. They were the pretty broad ones that, they're a lot less specific than everything else that was involved. So those are the ones I'm going to cover. They talked about selection, talent identification, reward, and flexibility. So for selection, making sure the people you're picking are the good people for the job. They're informed decisions, looking beyond a person's name. Just because you see a certain name on top of an application or a resume doesn't mean that we can't put people in a box because of their name. Look to more than just that. The reward, holding others accountable. That's for good and bad decisions. A lot of times the people at the top, they don't get held accountable for the bad things that happen. The people underneath of them will, but not the people above. And if you're going to run an inclusive model, everybody needs to be held accountable for their job. And they talked about flexibility, creating an accountability and checkpoint mechanism to make sure that everybody has the room to grow. Having somebody be in charge of, can this person get this job, and can they do it in a way that doesn't hinder their personal life as well. The enterprise section, it talked about leadership commitment, risk management, values, and customer. Each one of those has their own parts to it. Leadership commitment, strategies to avoid unintended group dynamics. They treat the whole group as a group, not just one. This is the in group, this is the out group. You're part of the out group. I can't talk to you. The leadership part says, I'm going to seek feedback from everybody, no matter if I like ideas that you've come up with in the past, open-minded. Let's see what everybody has to offer. For like the customer section, product marketing is inclusive as well. For a business model, this is more about making sure we're including all customers that are involved. And this might even be going out to language barriers. Are we introducing a product in a different language so everybody understands what it is we're trying to sell? All right, so now I'm going to get in more into the inclusive leadership in the school, the part that I kind of took a step back and looked at from my own perspective. Some different steps I thought to having inclusive leadership in school. You need to have development and inclusive leadership programs that can work from the top down, from administrative all the way down to the kids. That includes administrators, teachers, support staff, parents. They all have a common goal, and that common goal is to have that inclusive environment. To do this, you're going to have to identify the roadblocks. What things are hindering our success from being an inclusive leadership environment? And then what strategies are already in place that work that we don't need to change? So for development, people who work to create an inclusive environment already can be leaders to others. This might include also having literature that promotes a school first attitude, not just the principal getting up and saying, this is what we're going to do, but getting others to buy in, sharing that literature and letting them know that that's what you really want to do. And then developing strategies on how a fully inclusive school will be created. It's not just hey, let's sit down and talk about it. We're going to write it down. We're going to have criteria that we want to, checkpoints we want to get to along the way. And then it's development of a student inclusive leadership program. And this kind of goes back to the Project Unify. Students and staff are two different sections. You can really have them go off of one another, but you're going to have your staff and administration working on one program and possibly your students working on another. And then you have to take the steps to include the parents as well. Parents love to be involved this day and age. There's no reason they shouldn't be. So getting the talent that you need to have a fully inclusive school. Have an objective process. Don't just go with hey, I know this person. I think they're going to be a good person to hire. You look at everybody's credentials. Go to the interview with an open mind. Is this somebody that we can hire? Is this somebody that has the same ideas that we're going for? Maybe they'll have but they also have a mind of their own. Not somebody that's always going to be status quo, but is still looking for the same ultimate goal that you are. How you get there might be different, and that's okay. That's a good thing. And that kind of goes back with what interviewers will look for, character or achievements or both. I think it's got to be a little bit of mix. Some people can have the best achievements in the world, but don't have that great character that you're looking for, and vice versa. You might have great character, but no sustenance behind it to make them be somebody that can also be a good educator within the school. So what steps have been taken before the interview process? This goes back to, let's have something objective. Don't just go with I know this person. That doesn't always mean they're the best candidate. And then what students meet the characteristics of that leader already? Once again, having an objective model of what you're going to do to make sure you're getting the right people for the right job. This may look a lot similar to the staff processes that you would go through. Identifying the roadblocks. What things are currently preventing the school from being inclusive? Is it communication across group, how your groups are put together, certain ideologies within the school? It might call for a little group reformation to get everybody included and start building that communication where it needs to be. You have leaders that are actively investigating situations where we're excluding people. This might go back to your groupings. Are your leaders looking for the groups that are excluding people from the very beginning? If they're not doing that, it might be time to be doing that to get them going in the right direction. And then in certain situations, you might have human resources, risk management. These people can also help clarify situations and keep your inclusive model going forward. Development of interventions to those settings that are not inclusive. What are the settings and what changes need to be made to have those settings work out? And then inclusion, identification of situations or settings that promote an inclusive environment. Staff, students, parents are in already established groups. Can we have a generalization from one setting to the next because we already have them? and then putting those leaders in situations that can